What is the craziest thing you've ever witnessed at a party? Floor caved in at an apartment party. The carpet was the only thing holding everyone up. People were falling. Others were trying to climb up the carpet wall that led into the kitchen to try and escape the building. I felt bad for the dude that lived below. Crap was outrageous. What if you were taking a poo and then suddenly the ceiling opened up and all of these drunk people fell on top of you? Land shark. Was at a party and someone yelled land shark. Out comes a naked dude with a frisbee in his butt crack, carried butt up by like 4 guys. It was fun running away from him. Watched 2 guys try to jump over a bonfire at the same time from opposite directions. They collided midair and landed in the fire. Alright man, you go left and I'll go right. Saw a passed out girl get dongs drawn on her face in Sharpie. Passed out girl was actually dead girl who overdosed. Imagine the marker wouldn't come off, and her parents came into it her corpse and saw like 30 dongs in various shapes, sizes and colors on her face. Last Halloween I watched a drunk guy jump from the 3rd story of an apartment building, then get up and walk away unscathed. He probably died but was too drunk to notice. Guy drinks whole bottle of bourbon at a party I'm at, passes out on the deck. 2 guys come in from an undisclosed location and pop an IV in him and get him up and running again. They casually leave. 2 weeks later I found out that they were the neighbors and they had been watching us and thinking of old times partying in the military. They saw this happen and came over to keep the party going. 2 weeks, though, no one knew who they were. Good way to meet the neighbors I guess. I'm not sure I let 2 random guys pop an IV in a drunk dude's arm. Saw a guy drop and shatter an entirely full beer bottle on the floor. I was the only one to saw him. He immediately fled the scene. When people started to surround the broken glass, a random person asked who made this freaking mess. The guy reappeared and said, I bet some freaking chode, and he started cleaning it up. Well played guy. He cleaned it up. Respect. I was kinda pee, but my friend invited me to a swingers party without telling me what was going on. I once saw a guy demand to be literally tortured. Was at a crap show of a house party once in college when I overheard a very drunk guy say PSSHHHH waterboarding isn't even that bad. I don't get what the big deal is. His equally crap-faced roommates got into an argument with him about how awful waterboarding is, but he insisted that it wasn't that bad. One thing led to another and the guy ended up demanding that his roommates waterboard him to prove his point. His friends did not like the idea at all, but this guy was relentlessly insisting that he could handle it. After much drunken convincing they held him down under the faucet with a shirt over his face and waterboarded the shit out of him. He spurted and struggled against their grip but they held him there for something like 12 seconds, which felt like a freaking eternity watching this crap go down. Afterwards they pulled him up and waited for his reaction. After coughing for a while he looked up at them and said, "Frick dude, that freaking sucked. Who would have thought that little torture would be unpleasant? What the crap Lana." Found a dead person in my lawn the morning after. That was crazy. Drank too much and mixed it with whatever pills. Went to wake him up, but he was dead. I watched a marriage fall apart at a family reunion I was at. My aunt and uncle invited their neighbors over and we started off classy but then popped out the liquor. That's when a couple, non-relatives, who seemed quite normal and happy at the beginning of the night, began to open up about the marital problems to other people quite loudly. At some point this couple discovered what each other had been saying about the other. My aunt threatened to call the police but they calmed down and she told the husband to leave and cool off. While he was gone, the wife tried to jump my underage cousin screaming about how much she wanted him to frick her in the bathroom, then locks herself in the bathroom. My aunt calls the husband to come and collect his wife and they end up having sex in the bathroom. Very interesting night. Sounds like a pretty good marriage actually. Party at a cabin in the woods in Quebec. The DJ is great, the dance floor is lively, there's a good mix of people you know and people you don't. The lights are dim and there's good energy. Suddenly, there's naked guys on the dance floor. A cheer goes up and some other ambitious folks, suddenly realizing the party could go full naked, take their cue and doff their garments. The dance floor loses a bit of momentum, but the naked people are putting out some great energy so nobody minds. Then the whispers start. Nobody knows who they are. The naked guys. They don't speak English, which is normal, because it's Quebec, but they don't sound like they're speaking French either, and nobody knows who they are. We head out to the porch, and there's 3 sets of ski tracks that led from the forest to the cabin. 3 sets of skis, and no context. Eventually it turns out that they were 3 Norwegian tourists, staying at the local hostel, out for a naked ski through the countryside at 1 in the morning when they heard a party going on, and invited themselves in. The editor of the local paper was there. They made front page. Gotta love Scandinavians. Been to 2 naked parties, dongs and tea flopping everywhere. It takes an hour or so and then people realize it's just a normal party and no orgy going on, so you just chill and try to get as drunk as you can. On Halloween I watched a guy dressed as Jesus standing on top of a frat house drinking boxed wine claiming it was water a few minutes ago. An hour later I saw the same Jesus being arrested for public indecency. I saw the guy eat frozen pizza rolls. Not the craziest thing that has ever happened, but for some reason I'm still not over it. Some guy at a college party took a fish out of the host's aquarium and put it on the grill to cook it alongside the hamburgers and hot dogs. Needless to say, the host was mortified as this fish was their special pet. Seriously though, frick that guy. It's one thing to be in butthole and mess up someone else's belongings. It's another thing to kill their pets, even if it's a fish. I was at a party that my friend had invited me to. It was in a hotel room at a pop culture convention, so most everyone in the hotel was partying to some extent. I mostly just sat awkwardly in the corner while everyone did shots out of a guy's butt. All he was wearing was a jockstrap. At some point someone bursts into our room. The door was slightly ajar, and asks if anyone is a doctor. The bust shots guy sits up, sending the shot glasses flying and yells I'm an EMT and runs out of the room. He relocated the girl's shoulder and waited with her until the ambulance came. My friend kicked a girl in her chest right off the Patio 300 style. My manager, while showing me around the store the first day, wanted to show me that the front doors could be pushed open by kicking it 300 style. My friend spilled an entire fifth of crappy whiskey. How to clean it up, you ask? A mop. But wait, you can't just waste the booze. Whiskey mop water. Why not just wring it out into our mouth, someone asks, or dares. I can't remember, but that's what happened. Dirty butt mop water mixed with crap whiskey being chugged and sipped straight from the mop itself as well as the bucket. Being sober and witnessing this was really a WTF moment. Hahaha, WTF. That's vile. I saw someone stumble past the football table at a party on Halloween. I made a joke that someone got drunk too early. Then I noticed the blood. 3 other people got stabbed. Guy caught some people in his room stealing crap. They stabbed him a couple times, then stabbed their way out. Hotel party. 20-somethings crammed into a Motel 6 room drinking and smoking. At a certain point in the night the guy who actually bought the room, who I didn't know, said I'm gonna go to bed but I'm just gonna sleep in my van so y'all can keep partying. A cheer goes up, he leaves, night continues and fades into black. I wake up the next morning on the floor of this hotel room with no one else there, totally alone. I stumble out of the room into the parking lot and parked right outside the door is a cop car and ambulance and some small commotion, but I leave unnoticed. I walked to a nearby dinner and saw some kids from last night who informed me that the guy whose room it was went back to his van but not to sleep but to smoke M, and he had overdosed and died during the night. The little crew that had formed during that time going to parties like that, this was in NorCal, disbanded after that. Our youth. I was at a party, standing at the basement door while a small group of people passed a joint. The entrance to the door was slightly below ground level, so we were standing in a depressed concrete area in front of the door with the ground above at about waist height. In front of us, at eye level, was an old lawnmower, the kind you would pull the cord and curse at while it refuses to start. Puff, puff, pass in the quiet of the night when suddenly a loud thud and a body from above lands horizontally, back first, across the lawnmower, having fallen from the balcony above. His arms quickly grab his chest as one might be expected to do during a traumatic aortic dissection. There is a sigh like gurgling noise from him and then nothing. He is not moving and we are 100% certain he is deceased. I feel like the life force is leaving him as his arms, now awkwardly across his chest, start to slowly unfold, past parallel toward the ground. His right arm has now entered our space, hand open and limp at the wrist, fingers hanging down and looking very corpse-like. Slowly, eerily, his index finger and thumb begin to move together until the tips are touching. His body language is unmistakable, so we pass him the joint and he takes a long haul. Somehow, he was completely unharmed. Legend. I was at a house party, and the party next door was being hosted by collegeoffuckfest.com. We were admiring the ridiculous queue of dudes waiting to get into the party, probably assuming they'd get to frick somebody, when the staircase they were on collapsed. It was like watching a drunk Titanic. Party has been going on for an hour. Bedroom door opens and guy walks out in pajamas with a holster and 9mm pistol. He goes out the back door to talk to Jim, his roommate who started the party. Jim is drunk. Turns out the armed man in his pajamas was named Fudge. He was not happy at the noise. Jim and Fudge argued and Fudge drew his pistol and made Jim dance with real bullets. I don't know what happened after that because I ran away. I like to think they lived happily ever after though. One of the most interesting party stories I have would be the time me and my girlfriend at the time had a party at her house. Everything was going fine but people kept showing up throughout the night. She went and passed out and I stayed up to make sure everything was going fine and nothing got stolen or broken. Finally at one point I decide to go to bed even though the party is still going on. We then wake up the next morning expecting to find people passed out and a trashed house but instead found the whole house cleaned and a box of donuts waiting for us. That was the best way to wake up after having a party. After the shrooms hit, I was feeling on the verge of a breakdown freak out. So I went into the chill room and found a spot on the floor. A while later I noticed there was a rat in my lap that I was petting. Strangely, the guy next to me could see it too. Turns out it was the host's pet. Friendly enough for a rat, we chatted for a while before he moved on to a different lap. Domesticated rats are nice, just like bigger mice really. The problem comes when you get wild rats which breed like, well, like freaking rats, and they are gross and skitter about all self-righteous and smug, like they own the goddamn place, and then they eat your Uncle Bob while he's napping on the sofa one night. Senior year of college. A friend of mine had just been drafted to the NFL team in my city, so myself and my roommates had been helping him get acquainted. We threw a pretty big party in our house and invited him. He ended up taking an entire fifth of 100 proof Smirnoff to the head in one continuous swig. He basically ended up bouncing our party, putting many of our guy friends in headlocks, and passing out on the futon in our basement. He made me promise not to let anyone take pictures of him because it would ruin his career. What a pal. This happened when I was college. I was at a party that spanned 2 apartments on the 3rd floor of 3-story building. The entire outside walkways were filled with people. At about 1 AM, the people in the adjacent apt start leaving, slamming doors. It was the biggest, loudest party I'd ever witnessed at that point. Eventually it gets so crowded upstairs that people begin spilling out into the parking lot. So now the party is taking up the entire top floor of the apartment building and there's probably 100 people in the parking lot as well. I brought a few people I'd been chatting with out onto the porch of one of the apartments with the intention of smoking them out. I'm packing a bowl when this wasted chick who is sitting beside me grabs my face and goes in hard for a kiss. Unbeknownst to me, her boyfriend is standing right inside the sliding glass door and see this happen. He comes out ready to beat my face in. It went from, holy crap this is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me, to oh frick, really quick. Thankfully the people I was with stopped him and explained I had no part in initiating our short-lived but intense makeout session. The guy wasn't really hearing it, he wanted to beat my butt. About this time we hear glass breaking down in the parking lot. We look out into the lot and see bottles being flung down from the 3rd story walkways and one of them hits this guy, clean, right in the face. He goes down. The bottles continue raining down. I have no idea why they were throwing bottles. Word of this gets to the hosts and they yell, "Cops are coming." Everyone needs to get out. I'm pretty sure this was just to get everyone to leave, but it saved my butt. Feel sorry for the guy that got hit in the face with a bottle. He was gone when we got down to the parking lot, so I assume he was at least relatively okay. I heard a lady shout Mick, don't drink raw chicken, and turned around to see Mick had grabbed a plate from the fridge with a chicken on it, and he was drinking the bloody red juice out of the plate. Not sure why. TLDR. Mick drank raw chicken. I once watched a guy in lab coat on Halloween throw a bottle of wine on the ground, yell entropy, and run out of the party. I saw a man vomit up an entire, intact, Dorito. End of story. I was at a party once where someone put vodka in the host's rat's water bottle. He died. That's sad. My friend Pete worked on a girl for 2 hours and finally got her upstairs. About 15 minutes later she came running down the stairs screaming, "It's in my eye and it burns." Even though her friends helped her wash out her eye, it got all red like she had pink eye. To this day, we call him Texas Pete because he shoots hot sauce out his dong. CM in the eye sucks. Happened to me once in high school, so I had to convince my parents I had pinky. So in my senior year in high school I was attending a friend's party at his mom's house because she was out of town. So my friend had invited some of his more rambunctious friends and they almost immediately busted out the C and started going to town. Being relatively sheltered, I was uncomfortable with being around all that yayo, so I just hung with my brother in the other room and smoked a couple bowls. Well, some time had passed and I hear yelling from out front and decide to go check it out. As I walk to the front door, it flies open and this guy runs in holding his gooch screaming, "He got me. He got me," and as he hops past me he moves his hand and his pants are soaked in blood. Needless to say, I was speechless, and being stoned I was a bit nervous. But alas, my curiosity got the better of me and I walked out front to see what was going on. Out in the street I see two figures fighting with broken bottles and one guy laid out unconscious in the street. I watch this in amazement for a few moments and then a car comes screeching around the corner and fricking rams into one of the guys fighting in the street, causing the guy to roll over the hood and get tossed a couple feet before the car speeds off. At this point I am like, frick this crap, and I just bounced with my brother without asking questions. I come to find out later that there were some random tweakers spinning underneath one of the cokeheads trucks at the party and someone called them out. Being tweaked out, the tweakers tried to fight the cokehead and all his like 6 friends at the party, who were also yacked out. Some bottles got brought out and smashed and one guy got stabbed in the gooch. After that, one of the coked out guys ran to his car and decided he was going to run the tweakers over, which he did. Needless to say, I haven't hung out with those people since that party. I just learned a ton of new words. I had a party at my college house once where I ended up passing out early. The next morning I walked downstairs to find friends sleeping all over the floor, and panties, dozens of panties, hanging from my ceiling fan, displayed on the bookshelf, in my freezer. They all had ridiculous print on them, like my picture of a cat, Love Steve's picture of a rooster. There was even one hanging from the sconces outside. The way it was described to me, a friend showed up to the party who happened to be working a random factory job, making panties. He brought a backpack full of them, and when the time was right he busted that crap open like a pinata. Maybe not the wildest party experience, but one of the most bizarre. That is the least interesting outcome to that story possible. I was at a party when I was about 19 or 20, 4 long years ago, and lots of booze later. I'm not really sure when it was. It was a house party and there was a list of rules up. One of the rules was that if you grabbed a spitter you had to drink it. So as the party progresses, one guy is well ahead of everyone else to the point that he can no longer stand. Well, while he is sitting he throws in a dip and continues drinking. For a drunk, he had great skills in distinguishing between the beer he was drinking and the empty he was spitting into, even while not looking and talking to people. Well, a couple of buttholes are watching and think it'll be funny to switch his spitter spot and his drinking spot. So he puts his beer down and starts talking, and one of the guys quickly changes the bottles around. Well, the guy turns back to grab his beer and the buttholes start screaming that he grabbed a spitter. The party went fricking silent. The drunk looked at the fricking bottle with a look of bewilderment. The host of the party walked up and said, "Sorry man, rules are rules." Then the drunk yells "frick it" and started to put the spitter to his lips. At that point I was about to puke just watching it, even though I dip. But just as he gets the bottle to his lip, the host grabs it from him and turns to the butthole and says, "I saw you change the bottles, so you get to drink it." At that point the butthole says frick that and tries to leave. The host yelled at a few guys to stop him from leaving and then forced him to drink it. Quickest form of karma I've ever seen. Also posting from my phone, so sorry for any frick ups. If your party has a rule list that includes the word spitter, you might be a redneck. A girl was super drunk and she pulled down her pants and started swinging back and forth while pooping. Everyone called her party pooper forever. Rolled 2 natural 20s back to back. It was crazy time to be alive. My friend. He likes to attend house parties, often with the sole purpose of getting drunk and stealing at least one of the host's spoons. He has quite the collection. I found out about this after a mutual friend ranted on Facebook about someone stealing their spoons at their party, and he chuckled and told me it was him. A buddy of the host called early on, about 8 PM. There was an accident at work and the host needs to help him now. So dude shows up, acting a little worried but otherwise normal. I don't hear what he says to the host, but he rolls up his sleeve, and there's a 2-inch square flap of skin that's been ripped up from the muscle and folded in. Some piece of equipment cracked and a huge chunk of something clipped him. Thing is, he's a huge pothead, and if he files a workers' comp claim, they'll have him tested and he'll be fired. Luckily, one of the guests happens to be, swear to God, a horse surgeon. He drove home and got his mobile kit. The entire time the skin was being removed from underneath the wound. The entire time the wound was being cleaned with alcohol. The entire time the wound was being stitched up. This guy didn't even flinch. Then he grabbed a water, took a massive bong hit, and passed out in his car. I've done some tough guy crap in my time out of absolute necessity, but at that moment I realized I'm much closer to a fluffy little fat girl than a tough guy. I was afraid you were going to say the horse surgeon came back, decided the wound was too severe, and euthanized the dude. Probably the girl who I was discussing wine enemas with, yes I am gross, who didn't believe that that could possibly work. Unprompted she decided to test it by dipping a tampon in vodka and inserting it into herself. It worked, and I had to take her to the hospital because goddammit don't apply 100 proof alcohol directly to a mucous membrane, people. Got drunk at a party in Berlin. Don't remember how, but ended up at a party in Prague. Got drunk in one country and woke up in another. Good times. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.